Okay. Good afternoon. And I'm going to go over what I went over this morning for the silk ribbon class. So we'll just do a quick overview. If you want to watch the first 10, 15 minutes, it'll be the basic stuff with ribbon and stuff, but I'll go over it real quick. And then you may want to duck out because it was kind of lengthy to go over all the stitches, because I'm actually getting ready to do all those stitches right here in a shorter fashion for you. So there are different types of
You're going to flip it.
Yes. So there are different types of silk ribbons, and silk ribbons go back 300 plus years, way on back there, used in embroidery and in clothing, hats. Even Queen Victoria loved her ribbon. So one of the brands is Trimway, which makes them, they come on a little card. You have the Planet Earth fiber, which doesn't make, but we're hoping we're going to start making it again. Then you've also got Painter's Thread that makes them. And then you've got River Silks, which is what I mailed to you if you were in the class. This is each of the River Silks is color coded. So the gray is the 13, the black is the 7mm, and the beige is the 4mm. And of course, each size for each size canvas. The nice thing and why we carry River Silks is because they have a little bit of a rib on the side of them so that they do not fray, which is very nice. Unlike Neon Rays and these others, the ends will fray. So this is a nice one if you want to leave a tail on a bow or something and you just want to leave it hanging. This is the ribbon you want to use for it. And they're a great company to work with. We've sent pictures and we need this to match, and they're awesome. The wider the ribbon, the harder it is to pull through your canvas. So you need to work it in a shorter length, anywhere 6, 12, 18. Then there are many colors, and they come also over dyed, which is this little blue one here. We've got some over dye in there that gives you the different color variations. The needle you want to use, if you are going to be piercing your ribbon, you want to use a chenille needle because it's got a very pointy end, and that will make it easier to get through the ribbon and create less of a hole. If you're just doing a simple stitch, a Japanese ribbon stitch, a French knot, anything like that, you can just use a tapestry needle, and usually a 28 or a 24 work just fine with that. But if you're working with a chenille needle, like I said, be very careful because the tip is very sharp. If you're going to be couching anything down, you need to just use a single strand of a mandarin, a splendor. You just need a single strand with a good knot on the end. And we'll use that with one of the stitches here in a few minutes. So if you're following along, you might want to have one of those ready to go. A stitch worked in ribbon should be as wide. The size of your stitch should be as wide as your ribbon, because if not, you're not really going to get the benefit of using a ribbon. So if you're using a 13 count, your stitch should be at least that long or wide. And the same thing for the other sizes. Use your finger or a laying tool to hold the stitch in place until the next stitch is started. And that's really important also with that loop stitch, which we'll get to. A flat iron. Sometimes the ribbon is crinkled, or after you've used it and it gets a little crinkled, you can just use a flat iron. And we have some of these for sale in the store. And you just run it right across, and it just gets you a nice crisp ribbon. One of the stitches we work with, before you start the second stitch, you have to run it through a flat iron in order to get it flat, to get the right look of the stitch. They do get a little static electricity once you do that. One of the big tips I can give you for ribbon work is you have to be relaxed and you have to be gentle. You don't want to be pulling real hard because you might pull some of the stitches out, or you pull tight and it just doesn't give you the look you're looking for because it gets too flat. And so you just have to be careful not to pull too tight. If you do pull stitch out in ribbon work, it's easy. Just put another one right on top. No one's going to know. It just gives a little padding, and it's no big deal. So what you want to do when you first get started is you want to cut your ribbon at an angle. And that makes it easier to work it through the eye of the needle. So I actually already have them worked through here, but I have one here waiting. So what you're going to do, and I will switch over to the camera now. Let me switch over to my here on the. Okay, come on, let's go. Yeah, let me go to the USB camera so I can get a closer picture for you. Okay, so here we go. So, okay, so I've got you right there. Let me get my camera in the right spot. Okay, so you've cut at an angle to get through. You've cut at an angle. You're welcome to get through the eye of the needle. From there, you're going to go about 1/4 of an inch from the tip of the ribbon, and you're going to just pierce it. Then you're just going to pull the back end. Just going to pull the back end, and it's going to actually lock onto your needle. Ribbons tend to slide out of needles very easily. So you just lock that on. The only ribbon that I know of that you can do this with is the River Silks ribbons. The others fray and it doesn't work as well. So there are 2 ways to lock on. Your first way is to come up through your canvas, keeping a little bit of a tail on the back, which I did not do. So we're going to go back down. Let's try this again. So we're going to come up through the canvas, leaving a little bit of tail on the back. You're going to go back down into an adjacent hole. You're going to flip your canvas over. At this point, just like when you locked it on, you can actually pierce the ribbon. Pull tight, and that locks you on. Anytime you're locking or starting ribbon, start the ribbon in the area you're going to work. The second way is attach it like you would needlepoint to the back of your needlepoint. Just have to be very careful that it gets secured to the back. The other is like what we did yesterday with the beading, is you can do a pin stitch or an L stitch or a back stitch. So let's do the pin stitch first. You're going to come up through the hole, go right back down into an adjacent hole, and you just pull. Then you're just going to come right back up. This one we're going to come right next to. As soon as I put my glasses on, I can see what I'm doing, where I'm going. You're going to come right up into that very next hole, and you're going to go right back into the second hole you went down into. You're actually trying to pierce the ribbon because, like I said, that helps lock it into place. So there's a pin stitch. Actually, it's an L stitch because it forms an L. The other way is to do a back stitch. So we come up, you're going to go over one vertically or horizontally. Then you're going to go up one. Then again, you're going to come right back to that second hole you used, piercing the ribbon. You're going to go back through, and that is locked on with a back stitch, and it is not going anywhere. Okay, so the first stitch we work on is going to be, keeps the ribbon slipping off the needle, secure to the canvas. So we've done that. Okay, uses. So the first one is a satin stitch. So I'm actually going to switch to a larger ribbon so that you can see it a little bit easier. You can keep your ribbon nice and straight, or try to. So then right up here where we did the pin stitch, we're just going to come up through the canvas, whatever length you want this satin stitch to be, you're just going to go right back down into a hole. You can use your fingers or a laying tool if you need to. Sometimes if it gets twisted, I will twist the ribbon from underneath to get it straightened out on the back, so that as it's coming through the top, you get a flat look. And I will go back to my laying tool so you can see it better other than my fat finger. And then you just lay it down, and it just gives it a nice little satin stitch. And like I said, you can do that varied lengths. So there's a short one. Then you can come back and you can also do a longer one. My beading thread from yesterday. Come back, I got it, it's twisted. So when I figure out which way I need to twist it from underneath to get it to straighten out, you can pull it right back up to give yourself some length to help get it untwisted. There may be a time where you actually want it twisted, so it gives you a little bit more of a twisty leaf look, but there it is longer. And since I have some 4mm on here, let's just do a quick satin stitch here with a 4mm to give you a look. Again, you just kind of twist from the back to get it to lay flat. And there's a satin stitch. Now you can also use your laying tool or your needle to flatten it out more. You have to be really careful though, if you do it with a needle, that you don't puncture the ribbon, because it will leave a hole in your ribbon, which could be seen. And you may not want that look. Okay, so that is the satin stitch. It's neat and clean. It can be flat or rumpled, depending on the size ribbon you use and how flat you lay it. And you can get it messier looking with a little bit of twist. It's great for leaves and flower petals. Could also use it for some icicles hanging down off a house. So let's see, the second one is a French knot. So let's do a French knot with each of these. So here's the 7mm. So we'll come over here just a little bit higher. So you're just going to do like you normally do. You're going to wrap counterclockwise. You're going to go in through the same hole, trying to push the ribbon a little bit back, holding your tail in your left hand tight all the way through. And sometimes it can be a bit tough to get through there. You just have to tug gently. And then there's your French knot in a 4mm. I'm sorry, a 7mm. And here is a French knot. You can always do 2 wraps or 1 wrap. So there's 1 wrap in the same hole with ribbon, because the ribbon is a little thicker than in needlepoint thread. It's less likely to go through your hole. So there's a 4mm and a 7mm in the French knot. Okay, loop stitches. Loop stitches are great. They can be done loose or tight. You really need a laying tool. You could use a laying tool. You can use an extra large needle. You can use a double pointed knitting needle as well. You can use a straw, because if you're wanting your loop to be consistent, to do a series of them, and you want them to, like I said, be a consistent size, you can put something in there to hold it so that they're all the same size. It is better to work with a wooden laying tool with ribbon work, because it's a little bit less pointy than your BLT, your best laying tool. The finger trolley works well with ribbon as well, because it's a little more blunted on the tip than the BLT. So we're just going to do a quick loop here. So I'll go right here above the French knot with a 7mm. So we're going to pull up. We're going to put our laying tool, however big we want our loop. We're going to go into an adjacent hole, keeping the ribbon as straight as possible. Just going to form a loop, and I got twisted. So let's loosen. There we go. And so your laying tool leaves your loop in place. Now, if you pull at this point, if you remove your laying tool and pull it out, you're going to lose your loop. You have to leave something in there until you start the second loop. So if we were to start the second loop, once we start that second loop and get it going, then we can remove our laying tool to do the second loop. And again, you just have to pull very loosely. And it sometimes just takes a little bit more finagling to get it. Now, ribbon work does leave some loose on the back that if you were to get that just slightly tighter, you can still manipulate it a little bit. So there are 2 loops. If you were to put a French knot in the middle, you would have a pretty bow. So there's the 7. So let's do a couple loops here with the 4mm. There's a 4. See if we can get it kind of. You can also widen your loops if you wanted your bow or your loop to be a little bit wider. You can also go a little bit wider. The main thing is just keeping your laying tool in there to keep the loop size that you're looking for. Then once you get your loops, you can either tack it onto other needlepoint on the back, or you can just where you're working, put in another pin stitch. That stitch we did to lock it into place. So you can just pop it in, and that will help lock it into place. As you can see, I'm pulling on it and it's not moving because it's locked into place with that pin stitch. And I would put the pin stitch somewhere where you're working so it gets covered up. So that's the loop. Now there is a loop variation, and I'm going to show this on the 7mm because it's easier. There is a loop variation where you can make your loop a little bit bigger. You need to leave 1 canvas hole between where you're coming up and down. Again, you need to make sure you're straight. So you need to make sure you're twisting right in the back. Now it helps to either take your finger, you take your finger and then put your laying tool right across the middle. Just like that, even on both sides. Oop, and I pulled, so we're actually going to pull right back out a little bit. It happens. So we're just going to lay it down right in the middle. Then what you want to do is you want to come up right between where you went down and up, right into the middle of that ribbon. So you're going to come up. Oh, and I pulled too tight. Okay, we'll do it again. Like I said, if you mess up, just start again. Now I just have a little pretty little loop there. Okay, give me just 1 second. Pull too tight. Okay, so we'll come back up. We'll do a loop. We're going to go right back down. 2 holes over. Leaving a loop. So then you've got to find the middle. You can come up slightly. You're looking for the middle. Then you can push your ribbon down right on top. Pierce the middle. That's where your laying tool helps. You're not stabbing your finger. You come up very gently, and then you go right back down. You can use a bead. You can just use this little tacking stitch. You can put a French knot, and it gives you, let me straighten it out a little bit. I tacked it down a little wonky, but that gives you a bow. If you did it smaller, make pretty hydrangea flowers, little flowers. You could tack it down with a shiny thread, like I said, with a bead or a French knot. So that is, it's a little more difficult with the smaller 4mm. So it's easier to show you with the 7mm. So that is the loop variation. Next is the detached chain or the lazy daisy. And there are several things you can do with this. This is great for leaves, trees, bushes, garland. And you can actually do this stitch with your needlepoint thread as well. So you're going to come up through A. We're going to call that hole number A. You're going to go back down through hole number A. You're going to keep a loop, whatever distance you want this lazy daisy to lay. Then you're going to figure out how far up. You're going to come through the canvas, but not through the ribbon. And I'm going to move my camera a little bit better. Got out a camera shot. So you're going to make a loop. You're going to come up through the canvas, but not the ribbon. You're going to, you can go snug, tight, or you can keep it loose, depending on the look you're going for. So loosen it up a little bit. So you can go loose, you can go a little bit tighter, and then when you sink it into an adjacent hole. And then this is another one that you might need to play with a little bit to get the loops, because they can get a little wonky like that. And then you can just kind of play with it and get them even, however you want them to lay. And then there is a lazy daisy. You can also twist this to get a twisted look to it. You can also twist this to get a fake bouillon as well. So I'll just do one of those real quick while we've got it going. So you're just going to do like you normally do. You're going to twist counterclockwise, however tight you want your little bouillon, gently pull, figure out where you want it to finish out. Then you just gently pull, anchor it, and it gives you a little bit of that bouillon look to it. And that's just a twisted lazy daisy or a fake bouillon. Okay, so that's that one. The next one is the Japanese ribbon stitch. So while we're still on the 4, let's just keep going with the 4. So this one, you're going to come up through A. This is where a laying tool also comes in handy. And you're going to lay wherever you want this to go. And this one wants to go down, so we'll go down. You're going to sink your needle between your laying tool and the canvas hole you came up in. And you're just going to pull gently until you get the size of the loop. As you can see that little loop there, it's right here. So you can see the little loop. If you pull, it's going to come out and you're just going to have a satin stitch. So you have to either do a pin stitch to secure it or go back and start a second one nearby. And then once you do that, you're pretty well secured. And then you just come back and you lay a second one. You can lay these on top of each other if you're doing a row of these for a wreath. And then there's a second one. You can also go back and add a French knot, or you can go back and add a bead to those. So let me do a quick pin stitch so I don't lose those. Oh, and I lost it, but that's all right. I want to show you what it looks like when you pull too tight. When you pull too tight and you lose it out, it just becomes a satin stitch. My bad. Okay, so that is the Japanese ribbon stitch. So you do pierce the ribbon. Now you can pierce the ribbon on the sides. You do not necessarily have to pierce down the middle. You can pierce off to the side. And it gives it just a little bit of a funky, twisted turn to it, which is pretty cool. And that's the picture in your handout there towards the bottom with the twist. Okay. The French knot rows we will kind of come back to after we do the gathered stitch. So let's skip let's go ribbon rows. Okay, so your spider rows. So let's move to this side for your spider rows. So in your spider rows, you want to do an odd number of spokes. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just go 7. Let me go 9, just so you can see it a little bit better. So we're gonna do our spokes. And I'm going to just figure out just pretty evenly as much as I can out this other direction. You're going to put in 5 spokes. Oops. There's 1. I'm going to try to get it even on the other side. So we're going to come across. I think we're about here. It helps when you've got an area that's been painted, because then you know where to put your spokes. So we'll come down to about here. You can make your spokes out of your ribbon, or you can make your spokes out of needlepoint thread and then weave it with, you can actually do this with needlepoint thread, or you can do it with ribbon. So right back in there. And then there's your spokes. Next, you want to kind of move it sideways because you want to come in as close to that center as you can. So once you come up, you're going to go skip the first spoke. And at this point, you're not going back through the canvas until you're done doing your woven spider. So you're going to go over the first one. You're going to go slide underneath the second one. You'll go over the third one, under the fourth one, and over the fifth one. Now you've got an odd one. So your test to see if you're in the right place is if this one was over, your next one is going to be under. So your next row is going to be the opposite of what you did previously. You can again do this loose or tight. You're just going to slide underneath. And you just keep going until you have completed it out. So we just keep going around. And as you can see, it just forms a really pretty rose. When you get on out to the ends to cover the spokes, if it's going to be sitting by itself, you're going to have to really kind of push it in and get it up underneath, and you can go back and position it, space it back out, but it does get a little harder the further out you get. This has different looks with wider ribbon and has different looks with the over die. You can leave these flat as you go around, or you can twist them for just a little bit different look for the rose. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this off. And to end it off, you're just going to go right back through the back of the canvas and then tack it off on the back. So I actually have that one done. So here is mine. So I've got the satin stitch. Let me get my laying tool. So I've got the satin stitch here with a 4 and a 7. I've got French knots. I've got the French knot variation. Then the lazy daisies, and then the Japanese ribbon stitch here. Oh, let me get that one a little bit better. Okay, then we go the other side, and we'll come back to that one. So you do your spokes, trying to get those as even as possible. This one is completed with a 4 millimeter, and this one is a 7 millimeter. Okay. So next, we're going to turn your sheet over, and we're going to go with the gathered or the ruched, one which will look like these up here. So here we go. You're going to thread up a single strand of either Splendor, Mandarin, anything that's strandable, you can use this with. Just one single little strand. You're going to need a pretty big knot on the end. So I have knotted this. I've wrapped my needle probably 6, 7, 8 times. Pulled it through just to make sure I get a really big knot on the end. So at this one, you don't necessarily have to have it in the canvas. You can, but you don't have to. So this one, you're basically just going to start here at the end, and you're going to take little tucking stitches. Once you get started, it's a little easier. So you're just going to take these little tucking stitches, trying to keep these as even as you want. The bigger the spacing, the bigger the flower, along with the size of the ribbon. So you can make these several. You just want to do 5, 6, 7, whatever size you want. And then you're just going to pull it through to the knot. And then there's your little rose. You want to use the same color thread you're working with the ribbon. Then you're just going to, got it there on the back side, and you're just going to, see where I am. We're just going to tack it down.
Oh,
so we're going to pull it down. Okay. Then you can hold it on either side. You can come right up through the middle, and this works better with a smaller needle. You can either tack it with a beading needle, a size 28 needle, or a chenille needle. And I used a different color needle so you could see. You can always go back and trim and tack down whatever you need to tack down. Then you come right back up nearby if you're going to do a series of them. At this point, you then can just start right back. At this point, you just kind of pick up right there as close as you can to the flower, and then you can start doing a second one. Same way, you just pick up. This is easier to do with a little bit wider ribbon and a lot of patience. You just do a handful of these and then you just sink it back down into an adjacent hole from where you came up. And this one's going to make a little bit smaller. So we get that down out of the way. That's going to make a little bit smaller. These actually look pretty as little carnations. Yes. And then you can kind of keep going. And like I said, then you can just kind of come back up. You can use a bead in the middle. You can use a French knot in the middle, or you can just tack it down. And we'll just tack this one. And if you're concerned or if it's a little looser than you want, again, you can take another pin stitch just to get it that extra tightness. Okay, so there is that one. The ribbon rose, which the one we skipped a few minutes ago, the French knot rose, is a little more difficult. Let's see how I do today. So you do a French knot. Then after you do your French knot, you hold onto your knee, you hold onto the French knot with your finger, and then you start piercing the canvas, just like you did here.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've lost my French knot on the end. Yep. French knot, hold, and come through. Come on. This one will not be very neat because I'm not being very patient. We'll make this one a little smaller. Then you sink it. I think I lost my French knot again. Oop. Well, my French knot is over here on the side. That one takes a lot of practice. It's not one of my favorites, but it is one that if you work on, actually makes a pretty flower as well. It just takes a lot more practice. Okay, so the next one would be a stem stitch. So let me think this one, or if I got something on the back. Oh, I do. I have one over here. Okay, so your stem stitch. Let's see where I am here. So I'm right in here. Okay, so let's come stem stitch. So you're going to come up through A. You're going to do like you did with the Japanese ribbon stitch, where you hold it. You're going to come back down through B, depending on the length you want to use. And that just gives you a little bit of a loop. Then you're going to come right back up in the middle of the ribbon. And you're basically just going to keep doing that. It gives a little bit of a poof look to it, and it makes for a nice flower stem. Tree branches. Yep. Hold that one. You can go small, short, come back up again. Kind of holding that so I don't lose it completely. Don't pull too tight. Come back down, and you just kind of keep going with whatever length you would like to do that in. So that is a stem stitch. Pretty cool. It is pretty. Okay, the last one I have to show you because I actually learned it last weekend and I can't find a diagram for it. So I'm just going to show you how to do it. And I will do several. So let's move some of these out of the way. And we're going to work here with the 4mm. So let's come back down and come down here in some space where I have to work it. You will need for this one, you work with shorter pieces and you have to be able to tack it down. So this one's in my way. Pull it up, get it out of my way. Okay. So you will need a thread nearby in order to be able to tack this one down. So I will leave this off to the side here. Okay, so this one, it's called a twisted rose. So you're going to come up to the front of your canvas, holding your thread straight up. You're going to twist counterclockwise. And you're going to twist. If you've done cording, you're going to twist until it starts to come, until it comes back on itself. The more you twist it, the smaller your flower will be. The less you twist it, the larger the flower. So as soon as it starts to twist on itself, you're going to find the middle. You're going to bring your needle back down. So you find the middle, holding the middle with your finger. You're going to let go and it's going to twist up on itself. Excuse me. Very, very sorry. You're going to let it twist up on itself. You can give it just a couple little twists just to kind of get it twisted up. So that's what it's going to look like starting out. From here, you're going to sink into an adjacent hole. And kind of helping guide this a little bit, you're going to very, very slowly and very, very gently let this coil up on itself. As you can see, because I coiled a lot, it sticks out quite a bit. Then you just pull until you get to what you're looking for a rose. At that point, just put your finger on it, and that's where you come up through the middle. Right up through the middle. And this works better with a size 28 or a beading needle. You come right up through the middle, then you're just going to go right back down through the middle to tack it down. You can tack other sides to it if it's too big for you or too floppy. And then there is that really pretty, pretty rose. Okay. Yeah. Shorter lengths work best. If you decide to do a second one off what you have, if you've got enough left to do a second one, you really need to run it through the flat iron to flatten it out. It won't do you much good. It'll get very, very skinny. So you really need to flatten it out with a flat iron before you start the second one to do it. So I'll do another one here. So I'm going to come up through A. I'm going to, oh, and it caught my couching thread. There we go. Okay. So we're going to twist counterclockwise until it starts to, I'll do this one a little bit tighter so it's a little smaller. So it bunches up on itself like you do in cording. You find the middle. So I found the middle of the twist. I let it twist up on itself again. As you can see, this one's a little bit tighter, a little bit smaller. I'm going to come down in an adjacent hole. And then very, very gently, very, very slow, I'm going to pull until I get the look I'm looking for, or the size that I'm looking for. As you see, that one's a little bit smaller. I like that one. So let's put my finger on it. It's untwisting underneath. You can let go underneath. Then you're just going to come right up through the middle. Right up through the middle. And then right down through the middle. And it is tacked down. And there you go. That is how you do a twisted rose. So that is all I have for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call, 843-842-8488. In January, there will be a teacher coming in to do a little bit more with ribbon work. So keep an eye out for that. But that is silk ribbons. I hope you have learned something and that you enjoy it. They're really pretty. I can real quick show you some. Here is one where it's being used with a size 13 for flowers in a basket. So that was pretty and then it has French knots in the center. And then it's got some Japanese ribbon stitches in green up underneath for the leaves and some satin stitches. The other place where these came in handy was on the hat of the witch. So these are various stitches. They're mostly French knots. The orange, the white, and the purple are French knots. These three, 1, 2, 3, are the one we just did, the twisted rose, and I need to go back and trim those. And then the others are the gathered roses. Then there's some messy beading added in throughout there. So that's another option for usage. And then right now the collection has the ladies with a lot of the ribbons on their dresses. And that's been a popular one for a lot of ribbon work. So there you are. Enjoy and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.